This is Connections. From class to career, join us as we explore the interconnection between life, learning, and work. We are your hosts, Mark Andrade and Michael Spencer, recording from Humber Polytechnic.
So we are literally standing above the Humber River today. You can maybe hear the gushing water underneath us. It's a beautiful sunny day in Humber's Arboretum. And our guest today understands the power and importance of rivers and the connection they make to nature, exploration, and leadership.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. Tori Baird is a wilderness adventurer and founder of Paddle Like a Girl, an organization that empowers women through canoeing workshops and backcountry expeditions.
In our chat with Tori, we cover topics ranging from the importance of taking risks when starting a new business to how digital fluency and social media can be harnessed to lead to success. Tori provides a lot of interesting perspectives on pushing oneself to experiment with new frontiers in both canoeing and entrepreneurship. Let's have a listen.
To start, I don't have really any formal education. So I started working right out of high school. I was working at just an insurance company. And so really I went on maternity leave and I didn't want to go back to that job because I did not enjoy it at all. And also we moved really far away. But so I kind of just took what I knew and what I enjoyed, which was paddling. And my personal experience with paddling, just being somebody who didn't really see myself in these spaces that I was going to. And I thought, well, why not take this opportunity and, I'll have other women see me out there paddling. And then also I'll give them the skills and knowledge to do that. So I think for me, it was really just stepping outside of my comfort zone because I'm a very shy person. And so to the idea of like speaking in front of groups of people was terrifying. Yeah. So I started off by building a website, which I also had no idea how to do, and just kind of use a very easy website builder. But for me, it was really just taking that leap of like, okay, I'm going to launch this website and I'm going to announce it to the world. And once I've done that, I have to do it, So it was really just stepping outside of my comfort zone and taking a leap of faith. And like anybody who's starting a business, you're taking a risk, whether it's like financially or just with your time, the time invested. And like, is it going to work out? I don't know. And so that was really my biggest thing, was taking that leap of faith and then also just kind of letting it evolve. So not being super strict in what I needed it to be. Like I did start off feeling very like, okay, it needs to be XYZ. But as it's grown and I've had other people come on board, I'm learning to be a little bit more flexible and take advice from other people, and also realize that I can be really good at this one thing, and I can allow other people to be really good at their aspects in the business. So, for example, this past year, I brought in a couple of new guides, and I'm like, they're better than me. So I'm comfortable with them taking on certain aspects of the workshops or whatever it may be, and just kind of letting them run with it and being confident that they're going to represent the brand the way that I want it to be represented, and just kind of trusting people more, and just letting the business evolve and being open to new ideas, and of course using technology to my advantage. Of course, it is like an outdoor workshop and we're trying not to use technology, but the reality is we have to use the internet and social media to market it and bring awareness to the brand. So
you don't get a lot of foot traffic, I guess, in the middle of the woods.
No.
At Humber, we're increasingly focused on teaching skills and mindsets to students that will serve them no matter where they end up in life. It recognizes the professional lives of students will likely be varied and change over time. I'm curious how maybe your professional and personal journey has evolved. How did you end up here doing this? Did you expect to be here doing this?
Okay, so I would say no. First of all, I would not have expected to be doing this. And I just feel like in today's world, there's so many different opportunities to make a living. So, if you have, like, my business is based on teaching women how to paddle and how to canoe. But you can't really have a successful business without being present online in some capacity, whereas
Right.
10, 15 years ago, that wasn't really the case. And so now it's kind of evolved into like content creation as well as the workshops. And we're trying to create so many different revenue streams, I guess. So um, I feel like I just am taking it like day by day. What is the next thing that we're going to add to Paddle Like a Girl in order to kind of continue to become successful, but also for people to know who we are and what we do. So yeah, I feel like it's just changing day to
Right.
day.
When you first created Paddle Like a Girl, do you think it was like on your horizon that you'd be like on podcasts and having to do public speaking and like learning social media? Like there's all these things, right, that have nothing to do with canoeing,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
paddling and right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I started it thinking nobody's going to care about this, but you know what? It'll be a fun thing for me to do in the summer. Introduce women to paddling. And actually, when I first launched it, it kind of took off, and it was also just, I think, the timing. There was a lot of emphasis on people of color being outdoors and like women of color being outdoors and kind of creating these spaces. So the timing kind of worked out, but yeah, just right off the hop, people were reaching out for podcasts, and then I had the opportunity to do like different articles and inserts in different
Mm-hmm.
magazines and stuff. So definitely not what I was expecting. Again, I was kind of expecting maybe a few people to sign up, and maybe that be it. And so the fact that here we are 5 years later, and it's only continuing to grow is very
Mm-hmm.
exciting. But yeah, the whole filming and content creation is very weird because it also
Yeah.
does feel it feels very vain, a lot of it, like, oh, I have to film what I'm doing all the time. But I mean, it's just kind of the reality these days. So
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
add in just really quickly. It's reminding me, in a previous life, but not. I still do it, but I'm a musician, and one of the things I always struggled with was, I love making music, I love playing music, and when I had about 10 years ago, I had a band manager, and he was like, you need to be on social media, you need to get yourself out there, and that was the one aspect I really had trouble. Yeah, it was kind of similar to your comment. I felt a little vain, or I felt like it was very. I'm like, well, I'm a musician. I don't want to. They're like, you got to get better band shots, and you got to, promote yourself. You got to be on Twitter at the time. You got to be on Facebook. You got to be on all these things, and that was the one area I always struggled with, and it took me kind of going back to what you said earlier a little bit to realize like that is not my wheelhouse. So I ended up hiring someone or getting a friend who was really good at that to help me and be like, please just help me take some photos and like explain to me how to do like stories or this. And like these things were not part of it, but I knew it was important if I wanted to get shows and keep, being a musician. So
exactly.
it kind of resonated what you were saying with me. There's these other things that you have to do to be successful, and it's okay. It just takes some time, I think, to process it and then realize that it is part of your business, or it's part of the art you do, or whatever
Yeah.
skill you're doing. So
It feels totally unrelated, right? You're like, well, I'm teaching canoeing and backcountry camping. Why do I need a tripod and my cell
right.
phone and like
Right.
these editing apps? And so yeah, it feels very counterintuitive.
Yeah, and for better or worse, I think this is a reality of a lot of industries. Maybe not to the extent that it, like, as a business owner, obviously you have to kind of do a lot of promotion like that. But even kind of as faculty, right, there's like an element of self-promotion, you know, on LinkedIn and like that kind of stuff, right? And brand building and whatnot. And, you know, maybe some people dislike it, you know, but I
Yeah.
also think it's, you know, that might be kind of part of this, just the new kind of world we're in, right?
Yeah. I was not outdoorsy growing up, didn't do much camping, definitely did not canoe. So I was introduced to canoeing in my like early 20s, really fell in love with it, but I was only ever doing it with my husband now. And so, you know, just gradually as we did bigger and bigger trips, I got more and more confident. And so I ended up going on my own canoe trip with a friend, and it kind of just gave me even more confidence because, well, now I can do this without my husband, who I was like, is he just my crutch? Like, am I only able to do this with him? And so when I went out and did one on my own, it was really empowering for me. And it was just had a very stressful time in my life. Our son was being kind of in the middle of diagnosed with a syndrome called FOXG1. So we were kind of in the middle of finding out if he was going to be severely disabled for, you know, his life. And so, like peak stress for us. And so I had this opportunity to go on a trip, really my first canoe trip without Jim. And it was just incredibly empowering for me. And so when I came back and just kind of realized what I was physically capable of doing in the backcountry with like minimal gear and, you know, resources, I was like, well, what am I so worried about here in the comfort of my own home with all the resources I could possibly need? It just kind of reminded me of like how lucky we are, and just how like what really is a challenge in my day-to-day life. If I can do that, you know, in the backcountry, what can I do here at home? And so I felt like, well, if other women have the opportunity to do these challenging backcountry canoe trips, they might also be empowered and have that strength and confidence to conquer just day-to-day challenges, and kind of feel like those challenges aren't as bad as they might otherwise think, I guess. And so yeah, I paddle like a girl evolved from that. I wanted to guide trips, but I didn't have the certifications and all the gear and all of that. So I was like, why don't we just start really small and we'll just introduce women to paddling? Like, this is what canoeing can do for you. And so that's where it started.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that idea that obviously in a time of your life too, where like you're probably really stressful, and the easiest thing to do is like kind of not go on like that canoe trip, right? But in doing that, it kind of gave you that extra confidence and that kind of boost maybe needed to get through those moments. I often see on kind of some of your social media too, the kind of the challenge of like the first time someone kind of like lifts a canoe over their head or carries a canoe over their head. It always seems pretty symbolic to me, right? That
Yeah.
I think especially, I was wondering if you could talk a bit about that and kind of, I don't know why maybe that's
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
A huge part of it is well, first of all, people show up and they're like, obviously they're there to learn how to paddle a canoe, but everyone's like, I can't wait to lift the canoe over my head. And I think just it's realizing your own strength is all it really is. Like, people, first of all, the canoe, it looks so big and awkward, and like, how am I going to put this thing on my head and carry it? And a lot of people are like, no, I don't think I can do it. I'm like, okay, let's just try. You don't have to carry it.
Yeah.
We'll get it on your shoulders and we'll be right there, and we'll, you know, to support you. And I'd say 99% of people end up getting that canoe on their shoulders. And then when they do, they're like, okay, I want to try carrying it. And then they carry it, and then they get to the end of the portage, because we'd actually do a short portage during the workshops, and everybody just feels so powerful afterwards. They're like, they genuinely didn't think that they could do it. And then here they are lifting and carrying this canoe. And it does have like a bit of symbolism to it. It's like just realizing your own strength is really what it's all about.
Oh, totally. And like the thought of doing it is, you know, it seems so unthinkable and so scary, right? But then when you do it, you're like, oh, that wasn't as hard maybe as I thought it was going to be, right? And
Yeah.
I think we see that all the time in teaching, I think, or even like with young kids, often the thought of the thing is much worse than the thing kind of itself, right?
For
In
sure. And
accomplishing that.
I think people also look at me, and I'm not a small, like dainty little woman. So like they might look at me and be like, well, you're bigger than me. And so like, it's probably easier for you. And
Right.
so when I'm like, no, I may look that way, but like, I promise you, it's all about the technique and just kind of understanding. And then the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And so, when I have somebody who's maybe like 5'4" and like
Mhm.
really petite, they come and they get the canoe over their shoulders, or they carry an 80-pound canoe on the portage. It's just like so empowering. And then it inspires the other people in the group to be like, okay, well, okay, I'm going to give it a try. And so it's just realizing that it's not, just it's about like a technique and understanding how to do it, and then just also practice as well. So
From looking at some of your content, it seems like you're, one of the things that really I think draws people in is that you're very authentic in how you come across, and how you present yourself. And I'm just interested to know about, that idea. Is it something you're conscious of? Is it something you value in being authentic when you're out there, being, keeping it real? Just wanted you to speak a little bit about that.
yeah, I think it kind of goes back to my previous comment about it feeling very vain. So the idea of like setting up a camera and like acting something out feels very odd to me. So I try my best to, well, we film our trips just in general. So we often have like cameras just kind of rolling on
Right.
organic things that we're doing. So I do a lot of the editing. So when I'm editing, I try to just find funny, silly, relatable things from what we already naturally captured. So it's often like not what we're intending to capture. Like we might be making coffee and then this is happening in the background without us realizing we're catching it on camera. So I think a lot of like the authentic stuff comes from that's just being naturally captured.
Right.
Often when I do try to intentionally film like social media content, I want it to be educational or informative. I don't like to like fabricate. um I don't want to like fabricate the relatability, if that makes sense. Like I want
Yeah.
it to be organically captured. So even if I set up the camera to like film a how to pack your bag or something like that, if something funny or silly happens naturally, then I'll try to capture that, because on social media everything is so curated and everything always
Right.
looks perfect. And so it's very easy to look at other people online and think, well, their house is perfect, I can never film content inside my house, it's a mess all the time. And
Right.
so I want it to be like, listen, we do a lot of trips and we're very lucky that we can do these trips, but our house is a disaster because we don't have time to clean it, or like, so I try
Right.
to, and like our kids are chaotic, Hudson's extremely busy, and just like I feel like there's more value in people being seen through
Mm.
social media content versus like, oh, I can never do that, or I could never be like that. So for my story in particular, I want to share like the grievances I have with my 3-year-old because he's wild, and the challenges of getting Wesley outside because it is very challenging. It's
Yeah, right.
it's not like, it takes a lot of work and energy, and then just like how messy things are around here, and how not curated we are a lot of the
Right.
time. Like we're not. Yeah, it's just the reality of
No,
our life. So
that makes sense. I think that that's kind of what we've been, I know Mike and I talk a lot about, even now when it comes to student writing or student presentations, embracing the messiness, the imperfections. It seems kind of counter to maybe even 15, 20 years ago, thinking about, presenting or doing something. And it was always like, you have to be kind of super professional, super curated, make sure everything, like you said,
Scripted.
is scripted and really well designed. And I feel like that we're moving away from that because of technology, that people like seeing, the imperfections of life, the messiness, the hard work that goes behind. It just makes people connect more with that individual, with that story.
we've talked about your family in a few of kind of the things that we've talked about. And unlike, I think, more conventional jobs, your work and family are pretty intertwined. And I'll be honest, my kids love watching your kids on YouTube and the various kind of social content. In fact, no offense, but when we go to put on any kind of Baird family content, they only want to watch videos that have your kids.
That's fair. So do I.
Yeah.
So
What's that?
So do I.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm like, Jim's always trying to get me to watch his videos. I'm like, I don't have time.
Yeah, only the kids are in it. Yeah, they love them. They find them so funny. And I think for them, actually, seeing them out doing these things as well, right? Like,
for sure.
Is inspiring and interesting to them, right? They're like, oh, kids can do these trips as well, right? Obviously, they're doing it a bit differently, but I think it's interesting for them to see kind of representation as well, right?
For sure.
Because we often don't see that with children. But in particular, your older son, Wesley, was born with a rare neurodevelopment syndrome. Mm-hmm. Would you mind explaining a bit about the syndrome and maybe how it's affected Wesley and your family? I know you mentioned it earlier, but just we could come back to it. Yeah.
So it's called FOXG1, and he was diagnosed at 15 months old. So we didn't know. We had no idea, like, during pregnancy, and but he started kind of falling behind developmentally around 5 months, and so that started about 10 months of testing. But basically, it's a neurological syndrome. It's totally random and fairly rare. I think there's maybe 1,000 people in the world with FOXG1 diagnosed right now. It was only really discovered like 10 years ago, so there may be people with it that just haven't been properly diagnosed. Right. But yeah, so it affects pretty much everything for Wesley. So he's unable to like stand unsupported. He cannot walk. He doesn't have any words. He doesn't have effective use of his hands. He does have epilepsy. So his seizures are 100% controlled through his medication until he kind of outgrows it, which is lucky for us. Like, a lot of the FOXG1 kids don't have their seizures totally controlled like Wesley does. But I mean, otherwise he's a very happy kid. He's super easygoing. He doesn't have any like behavioral concerns. So he's just super chill and laid back and happy to be a part of whatever crazy adventure we're taking him on. But he's vocal, like he'll communicate in his own way. And so we'll know when he's happy or upset or uncomfortable. But I would say 95% of the time, he's a happy, smiley, giggly little kid, which is nice. But yeah, so we do our best to bring him with us. Obviously, we're not doing the same type of adventures that we had done in the past. So when we're picking places to go with the kids, we always take into consideration what the ability for extraction would be. So, for example, we did the Teslin River this year, and it's accessible by motorboat the whole way. Last year we did the Stikine River, same thing. It's accessible by jet boat the whole way. So of course, there's, and then of course, like, they can chopper in pretty much and pick you up if they have to, but we always make sure we're just doing our due diligence beforehand. So Wesley's only major concern is seizures, which again, I said are controlled. So we always have his rescue medication with us in the off chance that he does have seizures on trip. But otherwise, there's no need for him to be like living in a bubble near a hospital or anything like that. So I think these trips are beneficial for him and his development as well. So
yeah, I was wondering, actually, could you maybe touch on that a bit and the kind of importance of nature for, obviously I think it's important for all people and children, but in particular kind of Wesley, when it would be so easy to kind of, I think, retract into a bit of a bubble and like move closer to a city, right, where you have that kind of the medical access.
Yeah. I'm not the best at explaining it all, I guess, but just in speaking with like his physiotherapist, for example, she said just him like sitting in a canoe and just the natural movement of the canoe on the water is helping to build his core strength and just you can just tell that he's a happier kid out there. He loves the sound of the birds. He loves getting to watch the scenery as we paddle slowly by, and he's just, I can't really speak to the, I guess, the scientific
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
benefits. I can physically see him benefiting from it. Like he just seems overall happier. I think just as a family, we're spending more quality time because there's less distractions. There's less stimulation for him when you're out there, and yeah, I don't know. I think he just genuinely really enjoys it. So
How do you go about kind of ensuring his inclusion then as you kind of plan these trips?
yeah, I think it's evolving. So just as he grows, I feel like each summer we almost have to come up with like a new way to include him. But yeah, for example, last year, uh, we used to put him in like a little folding bassinet that was pretty portable. So it would fold up and it was really lightweight and it gave him just enough support for him to sit up properly. He doesn't, of course, we don't want to have him like buckled into anything in the canoe in the off chance that we were to tip. So
Right.
taking that bassinet, we kind of came up with like a canoe, more of a canoe seat version of a bassinet. So we actually reached out to like the canoe seat manufacturer, which is actually Novacraft, and so I gave them our design, and they were able to build like a bassinet style canoe seat for Wesley for our last trip, which should work for him for a couple of years at least, I would think. He's as much as he's growing lengthwise, he's not growing like super super fast. That's also part of the syndrome, is that they are, smaller. So I think it's just evolving. Like we
Yeah.
kind of figure it out as we go. Okay, like last year this worked, but he's a little bit taller. Will it work again this year? Okay, no, what do we need to do in order to make it work and make it safe for him? Because
Yeah.
of course we have to take into consideration his actual physical disabilities. Like he can't really stop himself from falling over if he's sitting, so we need to have that support. And then of course, for example, the snowmobile this year, we probably have to come up with a new arrangement for him to join us on any snowmobiling. And so it's really just knowing what works for us, what Wesley's abilities are, and then just being very creative.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's not like one size fits all, right?
Yeah.
It's like what
Yeah.
works for another kid with disabilities might
Yep.
not work for Wesley. So
Emojis in professional communication.
I think underrated.
Underrated, yeah.
Yeah.
That seems to be the answer that everyone gives. So I think,
Yeah, I think it's okay to like give an example, because it's very hard to read like, people's emotions while they're just typing. And sometimes I think I'm being really like friendly, but it comes across as not. So I like just make sure I throw in a little happy face at the end, like that we're all good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
I've been training my mom for years to just be like, Mom, at the end of a text, when you just write okay, could you just put a smiley face just to make
You
me
can't tell if
feel
you're
better?
mad. Yeah.
I can tell. It's a little
Is that an
too.
angry okay? Is
Yeah.
that a happy okay? Yeah.
Exactly.
and parents still put periods at the end
At
of
the
things
end
like
of everything,
okay,
yeah.
and so it makes it seem so final, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, as English teachers, we like punctuation, but I feel like you put a
Context.
period at the end of
The
an
period
okay.
means you're angry. So
Yes.
Yeah.
in text message language, right? So
It's aggressive.
Does.
yeah.
Yeah.
Living off the grid, overrated or underrated?
I want to say both. Can I say both?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it's really cool and fun. But I also think that there is a lot of like romanticizing of off grid, but on the other hand, in today's world, you can live off grid very, very comfortably.
Right.
So I think that there's like this, image of what off grid is and requires, but then there's also, I don't know. So I would just say both.
Okay, that's fair. Having a social media presence for your career, something we talked a bit about, but is it overrated or underrated?
I'll go with underrated.
Learning from failure versus learning from success, overrated or underrated?
Oh, I'll say underrated.
So you prefer learning from failure kind of thing.
Well,
Obviously
yeah,
succeeding is
like,
great, but
yeah, I would
yeah.
say I would just say it's like a really good way to learn. Unfortunately, it sucks to
Yeah.
have to do it, but it really is. It's a quick, like, okay, I won't do that again, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My
I,
older
I
son's
agree with
like
that.
highly competitive. He gets that from my wife for sure. And he does not like losing. But I think he's starting to realize that you learn more from, like, he was playing soccer the other week and his team got destroyed. I was like, you learn more from those games than you do from the ones where you win, right?
Big
That's a
time.
hard lesson to learn. I
It
think even
is,
as an
yeah.
adult, though. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Campfire coffee, overrated or underrated? You're really torn on this one.
I am. I feel like I like my coffee, but I'm also not like that person. So like I'm
Okay.
not like a God. I'll drink Folgers all day if I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like I'm not. So I'll say overrated.
Overrated.
Okay.